Okay, so let me let me just address this. This was unexpected. So I was on Instagram and I seen this post when it was about R. Kelly selling out a concert in jail in prison. And say what you want, man. This man is the GOAT, despite his despite his his crimes, despite his sins, it's like, you have to at some point respect this man's dedication and commitment to the music because a lot of people will, try to cancel somebody completely to where it's like, hey, I don't want this man to get like no type of love, no type of shine. But again, R. Kelly, like I said, the dude been doing music pretty much for over 30 years. So even whether you're locked up or not, because even now in this era, you can release albums, you can release music while you're in jail. Tupac did it, DMX did it. Rest in peace to them, and a lot of people doing it. But it was just funny because I seen like clips, and I'm like, he had like background dances and all type of stuff, and I'm like, hey, you gotta live how you live, man. Like jail isn't a place to where you're probably gonna have peace, but you gotta make peace with it. I never been in jail, never been locked up. I have uncles and family members and friends who have spent time in there and still has spent time in there, died in there. And I'll tell y'all a story. Right. So I had a uncle, rest in peace to him. He was one of my mom's older brothers, and I remember used to visit him a lot of time when I was younger. And he was in jail for something. And I'm not gonna enclose that, but it's like I never seen him or heard him, talk about, all the issues there. Because again, we was nephews. Like I didn't know him outside of jail, but he was one of my favorite uncles. He kept in touch. Even as I got older, I think last time I spoke with him on the phone, I might have been, I might have already have had my son, but I know last time I seen him, I was younger. And he kept talking about how he was going to get out soon, get out soon. I know that's every, um, inmates, convicts, you know, word. But there were some things that had happened that caused him not to be released. He had transferred. I think they lost his documents or something. So it was certain things. Like I said, I don't know the whole, you know, the whole gist of it, but it just goes back to show me, it's like sometimes you in jail, and I know people, I done seen interviews and heard people say, prison isn't, it's not one of those places, they have you, like some prisons might have you wear pink, some prisons, like say you can't, like you're really sitting in the cell 23 hours a day, and it's mainly just for, punishment. There's some rehabilitation centers, and I think these rehabilitation centers, especially in America, they don't really give criminals the rehabilitation. Some criminals might just be in there doing time. You might be able to get your degree. You might be able to find your religion, but it was something. There's always something that people who are locked up gain that a lot of us with freedom won't ever gain. And that's discipline and that's perspective. Because even people who are going in jail when they're 16, 17, and they got to spend the rest of their life in there, I think it's one of those things, like, I don't really believe in the death penalty. I do feel like someone who's doing life should have a shot at redemption within those walls. But one thing that I'm sensitive about, and that is people who are in jail for life or for a period of time where they pretty much spent a lifetime in there, like 20 years, 30 years, and they're innocent. So my thing is, R. Kelly's not innocent, but I'm really not surprised, but it's kind of like, hey, if this is what he did, if he had a concert in jail, he's making the best of it. I mean, yeah, nobody wants to be in jail. And I'm sure you have probably bad days and good days, but you have to make the best of it. You know, you got to remember, like, the person's a real thing. You know, mentality is something, you know, it's not always going to be easy. Like, imagine being at work at a job you hate, and you're just there just because you getting paid for it. It's like kind of like the same thing. You might have freedom, you might have a choice, but even in jail, I think, you know, we all have a choice. You know, prison, we all have a choice as far as like, okay, how you gonna deal with this time? How you gonna sit with this time? And you know, it's just certain things that I think about. That's why it's like I never want to put myself in a position where I'm gonna be caught up in a bind. You know, there might be some things that I have had had that can cause me to do some type of thing. Like, say, I have that. You know, I have certain things that can probably put me in a unfortunate situation. But it's like I'm not gonna do anything illegal, where it's gonna put me in jail. You know, like if you're sitting here committing certain crimes, and I was talking about this just the last episode as far as domestic violence. You know, you're putting your whole life on the line for what? Like, for a couple changes that you ain't gonna be able to spend for some pussy that you probably not gonna ever get again. And it's like you have to remember that the justice system in America isn't fair. And with it now being 2023, it still isn't. You know, it wasn't built for, you know, people of color. So they're gonna it's gonna be the worst. So like sometimes people they might rob a bank and not even get away with it, but it's just the attempt of it. Like, you can be serving like 10 whatever years. I wish I had more details on, you know, how that works as far as how to determine what the crime is, because you also got to remember, like, the judge is like the president. The judge is like the president. It's like it's the jurors and the prosecutor that does the job, that does the work, that does the due diligence. They make the decision. The judge is the one that's going to be, okay, you're found guilty. This is what you're going to get based on this crime. And I also think that even with, you know, when it comes to certain race, you know, you might get more. And I mean, there's a lot more deep. It's a lot more deeper than just a simple decision. Just like, hey, yeah, this person did this, so he's gonna get this. But I think, you know, people do consider, you know, the environment they're from, you know, the type of advantages that they had while it was free, and then they take all the privileges away. Like, you can learn this stuff even on television. I mean, it's not. I don't want to say everything is completely accurate when you're watching things on television, on shows, but you know, it's just something to think about. Like, you know, I had my stepdad. You know, he did time. Now, from what I know, you know, I don't know how long he was in there, but he did some time in there. But when he got out, I know that there's certain things that ex-felons aren't going to be able to do, like, right away. Like, if you want to vote, you got to go through the trials to get your rights back, even after you do the time, which to me, I feel like, you know, it's kind of counterproductive, kind of wild because imagine you're being someone who was innocent. And I need to do a little bit more research and ask a little bit more questions as far as that. Like, if you was innocent and then your case was thrown out and it was disregarded, what do you, man, sorry, what are the steps of getting your rights back? Because at the same time, you still did time. Is it valid? Does it like you did the time? Like you spent 3 years. Imagine you trying to get a job in government or in one of those high big corporations. They say, did you do time? And it's like, well, was you convicted of this time? And you like, yeah, I was convicted. And even after it was thrown out, do you still have to add that? Do you still have to count that as a conviction after you was proven innocent and it was thrown away? Because what a lot of people don't know is when you're applying for government jobs, they want a list of what you was doing for like 10 years or maybe 7 years. But it's like you do a 10-year sentence, right? And then you only serve 3 or 5 of it. So they want to say, what was you doing? Where was you in 2017? And you like, oh, I was locked up for conviction, but it was thrown out. So unfortunately, there are a lot of corporations that look into that. Like, okay, how did this happen? Wrong place, wrong time. False bad, poor evidential. Is certain things that I think about. But my only thing is, you have to make the best of every situation that is there, like good or bad. It's nobody. I think nobody wants to have their freedom taken away. And I think even sometimes when you're in jail, there are certain privileges you may get. There's people that's lined up now, and they're still on social media. They're posting videos up. So I'm like, man, y'all having a good time. You might actually be able to play that PS5 in jail, and they don't even have, like, you can't even afford it outside. So like, and then even with so things, like with certain celebrities, they in there doing their bid for what they did, and I mean, they gotta sit there. They can't do the shows. They can't, make their money. But hey, they still gonna have certain privileges in jail. Like if you're married, you got Congo visits. Cause I think that's what happened with Tory Lanez. I believe he married his baby mother, and he can get Congo visits now. I mean, that was a smart move. So now it's like there's gonna be certain advantages that he's gonna have. Despite how I feel about the whole Tory Lanez case, like I said, everybody has to make the best of their situation. I think that's the bottom line, is make the best of your situation, good or bad. There's been many times where I felt like, hey, this is going to be the last day I was going to be here. Like, I done dealt with, depression. I done dealt with heartbreak. I done dealt with heart attacks and traumas. And, I'm still here. Despite my flaws and endeavors, I made it through, and I try my best to continue to make it through. Sometimes when I'm not working, I spend that time with my son. I spend that time on my craft, creating, building, redirecting myself, and trying to get back on track. Try to make the best of my situation because, like I say, you can't be stagnant out here or out there. So that's just pretty much all it is. Just making the best of your situation. So just continue to be safe, stay productive and positive, and hey, that man gonna be locked up. If you're gonna spend time locked up, yo, do your crying, do your complaining, but you gotta make the best of it. And that's all I got.